All right, Steeler fans, second half of the show. It's time for another mailbag segment. In case you're listening or watching, I put this on YouTube, and you're wondering, how do I get my question answered? Simple. Find me on Twitter at jhartman, HARTMAN_PIT. All you got to do is once you find me there, I put out the question every Tuesday morning. You respond. I answer it live on the show. All right, so let's get this show on the road here. Chris Gillis, he's actually a contributor to steelcurtainnetwork.com. Go check out that website, by the way. Great articles coming out every single day, not from him, but from me, Dave Schofield, a bunch of other writers, steelcurtainnetwork.com. He asked, what's up, Jeff? Hope all is well. So excited for draft week. Softball question. Steelers are on the clock at 21. Grant, defensive lineman. He's from Michigan. Hartman, defensive lineman from Oregon. Nolan, defensive lineman from Ole Miss. And Sanders, that's Shador, quarterback are on the board. What's your move? I've actually run a lot of scenarios for the website. Just did my fourth scenario yesterday, Tuesday. And in this scenario, if all three of those defensive linemen and Sanders are there, I'm taking Derek Hartman out of Oregon. I think I like the build. I like his skill set. He's versatile. I like Kenneth Grant, but even Mike Tomlin said on Tuesday that the nose tackle, which is kind of what Kenneth Grant is kind of going the way of the dodo. It's just kind of, he said, it's like fullback. It's just kind of being pushed out of the game. So that's where I would go. I do think Nolan is an interesting prospect. He just kind of seems like a tweener to me. So I'm going to go with Hartman. I think he's the most pro ready. Let's go to the next one. The Ride or Die Crew poll of the week. Is there a position that you absolutely do not want to see the Steelers take in round one? The options are quarterback, running back, outside linebacker, and wide receiver. I went with quarterback, and so did everyone else that voted on this poll. I would be fine even in running back. If they were to go running back, I'd be fine with this crop of running backs, but it would have to that'd have to be like an Ashton Genty. I don't know if Amari and Hampton's going to fall to 21 or if I don't know. Outside linebacker, that would be a shock, but it's still quarterback. Next, let's go to Jeff Coons. Greetings from Not Mad Canada. What was your hidden favorite Steelers draft moment? Mine was Mike Tomlin asking James Conner if he was in Erie to drive down and he wasn't going to reimburse him for his gas miles. He said, and I love the exuberance with which the late, great Franco Harris read Juju Smith-Schuster's name from the podium. All right, so what my favorite hidden draft moment, I thought that James Conner's response was pretty special. You could just tell like the guy had gone through so much with the cancer diagnosis and all that, and all that entailed. And it was just really cool to see him get his moment. And I remember I wrote an article for Behind the Steel Curtain at the time. And I'm going to have to go with that. And that call with Tomlin was also pretty special. Let's go to Brian Haynes. He asked several questions. He said, Jeff, it's been a while. What position would you be mad about if they drafted at 21? Mainly, it would be outside of like the specialists because they don't need a kicker and I don't think they need a punter either. I would say quarterback. I don't want them to take a quarterback at 21. Next question. Could you see an honest scenario where the Steelers trade into the top 10? And if so, who would it be for? Now, Omar Khan on Tuesday did address this sort of and said, look, we don't have a lot of draft picks, so it would be very difficult to trade up if we were going to do so. I don't think they're going to do that. I would be very difficult when you think about what they traded up for to get Devin Bush, and that was in the top 10. I think that if they're smart, they just either stay put or they trade back. Last one from Brian. Would you rather not draft a quarterback at 21 and have Aaron Rodgers decide to retire and have to scramble for someone later or reach for someone we see as a day 2 or, God forbid, day 3, than have him sit behind Rodgers? So, okay, in this scenario, if Aaron Rodgers decides to retire, I'm fine with it. Let's roll with Mason Rudolph then. If Aaron Rodgers decides to play, I don't want to draft a quarterback at 21 regardless, so I don't like that scenario either. If Aaron Rodgers is not playing, then you get Mason Rudolph, take a day 2 flyer on someone like a Will Howard or a Kyle McCord, and they're your backup quarterback or your quarterback 3. And worst case scenario, they turn into your backup quarterback down the line. That's okay. There is value in that. Let's not forget that. Let's go to Eric Askew. He says the Steelers are now the betting favorites for Shador Sanders. Would you consider that a whiff? I wouldn't consider it a whiff. I would consider it a flyer. And I talked about that in the first half, where it's a pick where you're taking a flyer on someone. I don't like that. He said also, what would you consider a Con/Weidl pick and Tomlin pick? It often seems like if it's a bad pick, people blame Tomlin. But if it's a good pick, people will praise Khan and Weidl. Honestly, this is tough for me to say because I don't know the inner workings of the organization. I don't know the breakdown of who has the most say and who has to just sit back and kind of bite their tongue if they disagree. I don't know if it's Mike Tomlin who is like, you know what, Omar, I appreciate you and you are the GM, but I'm making this call. Everyone says it's Tomlin's team. He's the head coach. Of course they're going to say that. So for me, I look at this and say, I do agree with you, by the way. If it's a bad pick, people will blame Tomlin. However, before I go further, I do want to say that it has become very apparent in the last 2 to 3 years since Omar Khan took over how people have gone back and they have viewed Kevin Colbert's tenure with the Steelers, especially towards the end, in a not so great light. It has not been good. And so when I think about that, they don't go back and they're not blaming Terrell Edmonds' pick on Tomlin. They're not. People are saying, what the hell was Kevin Colbert drinking that day? Or what was he smoking? Maybe. I don't know. They're not going back and they're not saying like, okay, what about that's something I wanted to make sure is very poignant. But in terms of this, I look at this and say, if it's a bad pick, if it's a good pick, the Steelers front office, their scouting department, all of it should get the credit and or the blame because it's so much goes into it. And I always reference back to the press conference on Tuesday when Mike Tomlin said, I want to give a big shout out to Omar Khan and the scouting department. It is a 24/7, 365-day-a-year job. These scouts that are regional scouts and then the head scouting department, they are not just doing it from the end of the season till the draft. They're doing it all year. They're already scouting for 2026. Like, this is incredible. I don't know if people realize all this stuff. So this year, if it's a bad pick or you disagree with the pick, blame the whole group, the whole scouting department. Because if Tomlin makes that pick, if Weidl makes that pick, if Khan makes that pick, they all make that pick, first and foremost. Secondly, if they make the pick, it is amazing how far that player had to get through the process to get to be a pick. Go back in case you missed it. When I had Roderick David, former NFL scout, on the podcast, and he talked about how when he was doing scouting, he was with the Atlanta Falcons for, I think, over 6 years. And he said, man, I'm looking at this and saying, if I like a player enough and I like a player to do this, this, and this, I'm going to push it to my superior, and then it's going to get pushed up further. I'm going to that's their pounding the table moment. So let's just keep it all together. Put it all in one box here. Praise the whole group. Blame the whole group. That's what I'm going to do. Let's go to James. He said, Jeff, happy draft week. What is a final and very bold prediction of yours for the Steelers this week? It doesn't matter what round, if it's a trade up or down, trading of players, anything. Okay, a bold prediction. I think the Steelers make a player trade and acquire a second-round draft pick in this draft class. That is my bold prediction. And I think that it's actually going to be George Pickens. I think the Steelers are going to trade George Pickens to a team, I don't know who. A lot of people are throwing around the Dallas Cowboys. They need wide receiver help. It could be a number of teams. But I think they trade George Pickens, and I think that they recoup a second-round draft pick. And I think when they get that second-round pick, they're going to probably use it on a wide receiver. And they're going to – and I don't think it would be now they're in the same situation that they were. I think that's just where the Steelers are looking. And again, that's a bold prediction. Is it a prediction? Yes. A bold prediction to me is something that I don't really think is going to happen. But at the same time, I'll say it because it's a bold prediction. All right, so that's my bold prediction. Let's go to Steeler Fan 69, as he always does. He finishes up every show with a little bit of humor. He says, hello, I tried to take fungus on an airplane, but they stopped me. They informed me it takes up to shroom. I just totally butchered that. They informed me it takes up to mushroom. To mushroom, get it? My apologies on butchering that. The next one. I bought my daughter a purse from Iraq. She said, thanks for the bag, Dad. Get it? Baghdad. And then lastly, my wife and I promised to never go to bed angry at each other. We've been awake since Sunday. Where's the Chuck Norris joke? I love Chuck Norris jokes. Those are still good ones. Those are still good ones. Very good. We got one final question. I missed this one. My apologies. Brian Haynes had sent another one. So we didn't end it on the Steelers fan 69. Would you rather trade out of the first with the Browns at 33 and pick up like 3 picks in the top 100, or would you rather trade a superstar like TJ or Minka for 2 picks in the top 50? I would rather trade out of the first. It's just my own gut instinct. When you're talking about TJ and Minka, that's what I would do. All right, folks, that does it for me. It is here. It is time. I'm excited. I know you are too. Make sure you check us out at steelcurtainnetwork.com. Also, check us out on YouTube, Facebook, anywhere you get your podcasts, especially YouTube and Facebook, and on Twitter if you find me or Fans First Sports Network, because that's where we're going to be doing the live stream. I want you to be a part of it. Should be a lot of fun. If you want the most interactive experience, though, you need to be on YouTube. Find us on Steel Curtain Network on YouTube. Subscribe to the channel. It's totally free. We do appreciate it. But you will hear me again on Friday after the Steelers have made their first-round pick, or maybe they don't. We'll talk about it either way. You know, we finish up these shows. Be safe, be kind, and God bless. Have a great rest of your week. We'll see you on Friday. Go Steelers.